This video is the next video in the Historic Ordnance series. It's going to be on two mines from the what used to be Soviet, now Russian OZM series of bounding fragmentation mines, bouncing Bettys. We're going to be talking about the OZM-3 and the OZM-4. Both of these mines are still in the Russian military and in former Warsaw Pact countries. They are not a frontline mine. They're basically for emergency use now. The current frontline mine is the OZM-72, but they still maintain some stocks of the old ones for whatever's required, for emergency use primarily, or for giving out to whatever group or country they're supporting at the time. The OZM-3 did appear in the rent-a-revolution market going back to Vietnam, and then everything after that, you know, when they sent out mines, you got a bunch of OZM-3s and probably some OZM-4s with it. Now in the picture here, this is the OZM-3, this is the OZM-4, this one is a 72, not covering that right now. Now the OZM-3 has a diameter of 3 inches, a height of 5 1/8 inches, a total weight of 7 pounds, of which only 2 2/3 ounces is the explosive filler in its TNT. Both the 3 and the 4 have cast iron casings, hence the heavier on the weight. Both of them were produced only in green paint with black markings. I could not find any reference that they ever produced any in tan paint for the import-export market. The OZM-4 has a diameter of 3.5 inches, a height of 6 3/4 inches, a total weight of 12 pounds, of which explosive filler is TNT, only 6 ounces of it. So both of them are the equivalent of 1 to maybe 3 fragmentation grenades in strength for the explosive content, but it is a cast iron body, so it is going to produce a ton of shrapnel because that cast iron will and does shatter. Now the approved fuses for these, and here's an example of one here, is the MUV series, MUV series, for putting this into tripwire activation. Now, the OZM-3 can also be emplaced in command detonation. You see we got wires here. Now for a deminer, when you're trying to identify these, if you don't have them side by side, you don't have a tape measure with, for trying to identify it, the OZM-3 has kind of squared edges on it. It also has the 2 wire leads coming out the top for command detonation. The OZM-4 has rounded edges on the top, and there are no wire leads coming out the top for command det. Now, the OZM-3, I cannot have both of them. Actually, I can find very little historical information on them. It looks like they were developed in the 1950s, entered production and service in the Russian military or Soviet military at the time in the late 1950s. The US military says 1964 for the OZM-3. However, during the Cold War, the mentality kind of was, until the US military captured it and had it in their hands, it didn't exist. So the US Army probably did not get a hold of an OZM-3 until 1964, which in their mind, that's when it first entered service. Both of these mines are based on the German S-mine or Sprengmine from World War II, bounding fragmentation. Not too much different in appearance when you look at them. just for those that are wondering. Now, both mines do require a separate detonator to actually set off the mine. The MUV series fuse, that's just to activate the mine, to get it started. But to actually get it to explode requires a number 8A blasting cap. The OZM-3, which I do have a training aid, which I can use for giving the installation and removal instructions. The OZM-3 was copied or is being copied by North Korea and also by the People's Republic of China, where it is known as the Type 69. Now, crating on these, for if you come across the crates, you can see here what OZM looks like in Russian, and then the number behind it tells you which particular series of the mine it is. But the OZM-3 come 10 mines to a crate with 10 wooden stakes, 10 spools of tripwire with clips on one end, and the tripwire is 5 meters in length on the spool. And there should also be inside the crate a small wooden box containing the detonators, the blasting caps for the mines. The actual MUV series fuses should be a separate issue item. The OZM-4 comes 6 mines to a crate with reportedly 20 stakes, but my suspicion is it's supposed to be 12. 6 spools of tripwire with clips on the end, and the spools of tripwire, each tripwire is a length of 15 meters. And a box of fuses for those mines is supposed to be inside the crate. Now, I mentioned the authorized fuses. First one I'm going to show you here is the initial one in the series, the MUV or the MUV-1. Here you see it as it would come straight out of the crate. This is what it would look like when it's installed in the mine. And it's set for going off at any moment. You have 2 pins on here. The top one is the safety pin. This bottom pin, the smaller one, is what's referred to as the combat pin. Just trying to double check that. Now you see there's a little collar on here, on this one. This wasn't on all of the MUV-1 fuses. Reportedly, this was added later in their production. The reason for that is if the guerrilla or the soldier accidentally pulled the combat pin instead of the safety pin when they're arming the mine, by having this collar on there, the striker's not going to shoot down, setting off the fuse and setting off the mine in that troop's face. As you can see on here, the MUV series, and that's what this one is here. It's just a silver fuse, no paint on it, kind of rounded edges at the top, no frills, nothing special. The next ones that are authorized for these mines, the MUV-2 and MUV-3. Similar type of body, but at the top, you got a black rubber cap. That's one of the ways you can tell the difference between the two. If you remove that rubber cap, you're going to see kind of like a cross cut in the very top of that fuse. And inside that cross cut is actually an kind of a dissolving arming wire that after you remove the safety pin, that wire gets sucked down inside here, arming the fuse. And then MUV-4 fuse here, as you see, is completely different in appearance, but it is still just a tripwire activation fuse, a pole fuse. Now I came across for the arming times for these two fuses because they are self-arming. The MUV2 and 3 have a 25 to 30 minute arming time. On the MUV4, there's supposed to be a color band on here, which I'm guessing that's what this is down here on the cap. If the band is white or colorless, there's no band on it. It's a 25 minute arming time. If there's a white band, 45 minute, red band, 60 minute, black band, 85 minutes, green band, 130 minutes. The reason for that, I don't know. I couldn't find a reference on that for why they did that when I was reading through the Russian manuals. Now we're going to go through, talk about emplacement of these mines using a MUV series fuse. This is an actual U.S. military training aid for the OZM-3. I got a hold of it a very long time ago. There's a very interesting story on it, which I'm not going to tell you of right now. Now, we got to emplace one of these. So we get our crate of mine. First thing, what do? You inspect an inventory. You open up the crate, make sure you got what you need to put the mines in place. If you don't have the stakes, guess what? You can make them. Tripwire, you don't have that, you might have an issue. Take the mine out of the crate, look it over, make sure it's not damaged. You especially want to check the bottom of the OZM-3 and OZM-4. There's a steel or a iron little base plate down here. You want to make sure that's still in place. If that's not in place, you know, if it's missing altogether, the mine is useless. If the plate has fallen off, try to push it back on. That's about all I can say. There's not a lot of information on that part in the inspection steps. This here in the center is the detonator well, and all this is just a little tab to help you to unscrew the plug from the detonator well. So you flip up the little tab, screw the plug out, check down inside the mine, make sure there's no debris. If there is any debris, well, you could take it in one hand, the other, bang the meatier part of your hands together, try to dislodge the debris. Another option is, like with the M16 series, hold it in your hand and gently tap the back to try to dislodge debris. Once the detonator well is clear, screw back in the plug. Now this one I'm going to have to show you the picture on this because it looks completely different than this does. Over here on the side, which is what this is supposed to be, you have the plug for the fuse well. This is held in by or on by a little piece of chain. Unscrew that plug, check down inside, make sure that that fuse well is cleared. There's no debris inside. If there is, clear it like I showed you for the detonator well. Once everything's okay, the mine's good, you got the plugs back in place, you set it to the side, you go through, you first check your detonator, which is just a blasting cap. Hold it between fingers here, this finger over the top. Check down inside, make sure there's no debris. If there is any debris, take your hands, slap it together like this, the meaty part of the hands, the cap between your fingers here. Open side facing down to dislodge any debris. Don't take it and smack it. It is a blasting cap, for Christ's sakes. It will take your hand off. You do have to be gentle with blasting caps. Blasting cap's good, set it to the side or back inside the container. Then pull out your fuse, inspect your fuse. This is supposed to be a MUV fuse, a MUV1. Go through, make sure you got you have your safety pin, you have your combat pin, the body is not damaged, and that you have your detonator or blasting cap attached down at the bottom. Check the operation of the pins, sliding them gently back and forth. Do not remove them. Especially with the combat pin, you know, if you're moving it back and forth and it doesn't move for, well, I should say with the safety pin, if you're trying to move it back and forth, it doesn't move freely. It probably means the striker has fallen and you got a issue where it could go off when you remove the safety pin. So be careful. Okay, so we went through, we inventoried, we inspected, everything's good to go. We take it, put it in our bag, put it back in a crate, whatever we're going to do it, transport it to the site the mine's going to go in. Locate the particular spot on the ground the mine is going to go. Now, these mines are supposed to be buried. If you're going to surface lay it because the ground is too hard, you actually have to tie this onto something. Tie it off to a tree, tie it off to a stake, fence post, so that the mine will not tip over. It has to be in the upright position. Now the ground is soft enough. We are going to emplace it properly. We're going to dig a hole a little bit greater than the diameter of the mine to a depth of 14 to 15 centimeters. So around 5.5 or so inches, give or take. So 5.5 to 6 inches. Basically test your hole. You want the top of the hole basically being a little bit over the top of your plugs here, so that this will be concealed in the hole. Now after you got the hole dug, the instructions are you're supposed to put your stakes in. Put out one stake near the mine, the other stake farther away out to about 5 meters from the mine. Another option is you only got one stake. Just put the one stake out about 5 meters, and there you go. Now at this point, in order to save a little bit of time, you can tie off the tripwire to that stake, the farthest stake, and run it back towards the mine. Do not attach it at this time. You're just going to leave that spool of tripwire on the ground. Take your mine at this point and prep it. First thing you're going to do, you're going to remove the plug from the detonator hole. Take that blasting cap, the open end facing down, slide it down into the detonator well. Then take the plug, screw it back on, snug it up a little bit. Then you're going to take your MUV fuse, lower the blasting cap down in after you remove the shipping plug. You're going to screw in the fuse. And then whichever direction your tripwire is coming from, guess what? That's the way it's going to go into the hole so that the pin will get pulled out in the direction of where the stakes are at. So the mine is now armed, or I should say it's prepped. You lower it down into the hole. You then compact dirt around it up to the top here. If you're not using the electrical wires, take it, bury it down next to the mine so it's out of the way. Cover this up with dirt up to about there. Then you're going to go through, run your tripwire to your combat pin. Attach that clip onto it. Now's the pucker factor point. Now you're going to go through, you're going to remove your safety pin. And when you remove that, if it's a MUV1, you're going to take the little collar also. If it's a MUV2 or MUV4, you're just taking this big ring up here, the safety ring, you're removing it, and then the countdown's going to start to arm the fuse. Then go through, camouflage the mine, camouflage the area, remove all materials showing that you were there, and make sure everyone else knows that mine is in place. Mines are live. Move on to your next mine or whatever is required on that mission. Now I'm going to make this note. If the mine is supposed to be employed in an area where it does not have a solid base underneath it, you're going to have to put something underneath it to make it solid. So if you're putting it in, say, really soft sand or swampy ground, it specifically mentions that, you're supposed to put a rock underneath it, so that good sized rock, so it sits down on top of it, so it has that nice base for when this goes off. If it is in snow, you're supposed to compact the snow down nice and tight, or take a board and put it down into the snow, mine over the top, and then snow around it to camouflage. Now how this mine works when it's in this configuration for tripwire. The tripwire gets pulled, the pin gets pulled out of the MUV fuse. The striker shoots down, sets off the blasting cap in here. What this blasting cap does, it ignites a powder charge in the bottom of the mine here, which sets directly over the top of that iron base plate. That powder charge is an expelling charge. This shoots up out of the ground. Once it reaches a height of between half a meter, so 18 inches, to as much as 1.5 meters, what's going to happen is that when that propelling charge went off, it set off a time fuse inside here, which burns up to that blasting cap inside there. When that flame gets to the blasting cap, it detonates, setting off the TNT, exploding the mine. These mines were designed to go off at approximately waist height, but you know, depending on manufacturer, age, time of year, it can go off anywhere from your knees to your chest. There is a piece of stout wire attached to the mine here and the base plate, so that in theory it's only supposed to go to the max of about that 1 meter, hold in place there, and then go off, so it doesn't end up going shooting up over the person's head. Now we're going to go into for command detonation. I'm going to give you both modes of emplacement before I give you the removal instructions. So when we're into command detonation, we do not need the MUV series fuse, but we still need the detonator. We still need that 8A, number 8A blasting cap to set the mine off. So first thing we're going to do, inspect an inventory. Obviously, you're only going to check the detonator well. You don't need to check the fuse well. And you need to check your wires. Make sure they're usable. They're not damaged. You don't have any possible shorts anywhere. Then you're going to go through using an ohm meter, a test set. You're going to test the firing wire, and then what you're going to do, you're going to take the mine here, dig yourself a hole like this should be in the ground, set it in the hole without the detonator, without the blasting cap, attach on your firing wires, and then you're going to do a continuity check on the mine itself using the ohm meter. The mine has to be a minimum of 10 meters away from anyone when this is tested, just in case something goes wrong. It passed the test. Well, when it's done passing the test, go back up there, disconnect the firing wires, reshunt them. Remove it out of the hole, check your next mine. Now, we're on our ambush site, or whatever we're going to use this for. Typically you're going to put this in command detonation for an ambush. Find the spot your mine's going to go at, get an idea, find where your firing point's going to be, put in a stake there, tie in one end of your firing wire there, run it out to where you want to put the mine. Dig the hole for the mine. Same instructions as before. Tall enough that this is going to be underground, wide enough this will slide down in. And place another stake, tie off your other end of your, the end closest to you, to the mine, off to that stake. And then prep your mine. Lift up on the tab, unscrew the plug from the detonator well, insert the number 8A blasting cap or detonator down into the hole, into the detonator well, screw the plug back on. Lower the mine down into the hole, connect on your firing wires. When you connect them, make sure they're not going to come in contact with each other, so each end gets spliced onto it individually, and then tape them to isolate them so that you're not going to short. Go through, camouflage the mine, camouflage the wire going back to your firing point. Once you're back at the firing point and everyone is away from the area where the mine is located, do your final continuity check. Do your final test on the firing wire. Make sure that everything works properly. If you get a problem, well, go through, disconnect the mine from the firing wire, shunt the ends, check the wire, see if the wire is the problem. If the wire passes, it means it's the mine. Swap out the mine. And when you would swap it out, make sure to remove the detonator after you remove the mine from the hole. Everything passes. That's when you're going to attach on your firing device on the end of your firing wire. Wait for the enemy to get in a kill zone and set it off. Now for the removal of the mines, regardless of how it was emplaced. First thing you're going to do, you're going to come up on the area and you're going to check around it, make sure that there was no tampering. Make sure that no one got to the mine and booby-trapped it in some way. There is no secondary fuse well on this. There is no self-destruct device on this. But there's always a possibility someone decided to screw with you, took the mine out of the hole, put a booby trap underneath it, maybe a hand grenade with a really quick fuse on it to catch you when you try taking this out of the hole. If everything's clear at that point, you're going to do one of two things depending on how the mine is emplaced here. Now, if it's in tripwire activated mode, we're going to go through, slide the collar back on if it's a MUV1 fuse, and then put the safety pin back in. Then we're going to go through, disconnect the tripwire from the combat pin. Then we're going to unscrew the fuse from the mine. Set that to the side, put the shipping plug back on, and then remove the mine from the hole. Now if this was placed with electric command detonation, what we're going to go through, we're going to disconnect the two wires from the firing wire. Make sure there's good separation between the two wires. Then take the two off the top of the mine here, twist them together to shunt them. And then maybe take a little bit of that tape, twist it over the top of your splice there. Then go through, remove the mine from the hole. Now at this point it's the same, mine's out of the hole. Flip up the tab, unscrew the plug from the detonator well. Tip the mine and drop that blasting cap down into your hand. Remove it, set it to the side, reinstall the plug into the detonator well. Collect everything up and remove all sign from the area that the mine was in place. Now I just told you in the removal, just the steps for the MUV fuse, the MUV or the MUV1 fuse. Reason for that, according to Russian military, if the mine is installed with a MUV2, 3, or 4 fuse, it cannot be removed from the ground. It must be destroyed in place. There is video footage out of Ukraine of the mines being removed that have a MUV2 or MUV3 fuse in them. I would really only do that if you're doing it in a demining fashion. You're removing it from the area for civilians. If you're doing this for combat removal for later reuse, it's not going to do you any good because you cannot put the safety rings, the safety pins back in. Now, I didn't mention this, the difference between the MUV2 and the MUV3 fuse. The only difference is the MUV3 fuse has a P-shaped pin like this. This is actually a MUV2. And on this P-shaped pin, right on the fuse body here, there's going to be another clip that holds the pin onto the body. That's just to give it additional tension so it takes more weight, more pull to remove the combat pin in order to prevent it from accidentally slipping out. That's really all that is. So, if it has this fuse, it can be removed. If it has one of these fuses, don't destroy it in place. There you go. Hopefully I gave you enough information that if you find yourself in a resistance situation, and if you come across a stock of these mines, you can use them to protect yourself, protect your loved ones, protect your friends. Now I have to throw this in there because it is a historic ordnance video. Reminder, unless you're in that resistance situation, don't get one of these, a live mine, and put it in. Don't even have it. You will get caught and you will go to jail for a very, very long time. Is this something that you can manufacture yourself at home in a workshop? Probably not. Not unless you have some really good knowledge on metalworking, designs of mines, and so forth. So, nothing illegal about owning the training aids. But it is illegal to own a live OZM-3 or OZM-4 mine. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember essay-ons.